Good morning. This is Sheba, First Regent of Universe, talking to you. Today I want to talk about emotions again, this time about the different kinds of love. This is the second of 2 videos about love. Why do people get married? Why is marriage sacred? Why do women and men enter into relationships? Well, in our system, these questions are fairly easy to answer. If we assume that there is a being that combines all the aforementioned qualities that characterize women and men, then this being does not need a partner. It can manage completely on its own, but also has no sex, mentally and physically, and does not cultivate an intimate relationship. Nor is it able to go to extremes and therefore does not develop properly. However, this also includes dependencies. We have gone to great length to divide up the dependencies fairly between us. We also thought a lot about how to create you. As a hybrid, boring, or interesting and exciting like ourselves. 2 genders. That's important. In our creation, there will only ever be 2 genders, and marriage between a woman and a man is sacred. As already mentioned, the woman is mentally superior, the man physically. Of course, this also has an impact on development and upbringing. Men's brains initially regress, and their mentally development is delayed compared to women. But at some point, the moment comes when girls realize that the boys are getting better physically. He runs faster, throws further, the body starts to develop. You have to deal with this. He takes longer to learn things and he always thinks vertically. A woman learns quicker and thinks horizontally. That's why we said that a man should always stick to his wife. It's also not good for married couples to be separated in the long term. The man needs his wife's input. In a marriage, the woman is not allowed to exclude the man from her thoughts. This damages the man considerably. He degrades in the long term. If a woman does not talk to her husband and does not inform him or meet his needs, it is a reason for the man to separate. This great dependence of men on women has always been a thorn in their side. However, the methods you have adopted to enforce domination over women through violence and oppression out of envy will do you no good. The ridiculous idea of not admitting women to education is cutting your own flesh, because as we know, men do not give birth. Jeremiah 30, verse 6. Men do not attain the level of creativity of women. They will pay for this insane behavior with their lives. Islam takes this kind of misbehavior to the extreme. There will be severe consequences. If a woman realizes that she is only being taken advantage of, for example, beating and sexually and so on, or is even getting battered, she has the permission to withdraw. Besides that, the man should respond to his wife and take her wishes into account or implement them. If this does not happen, it is a legitimate reason for the woman to separate. If a man behaves correctly, it is important that the woman does not exclude the man from her thoughts. Projects are always implemented together. It is much more difficult for a woman to have an orgasm. Unfortunately, many men don't pay enough attention to the needs of women during physical sex and are only interested in achieving an orgasm themselves. Unfortunately, often very quickly. The sex is dull and the woman stays unsatisfied. This is also due to the fact that men only like women because of their bodies in order to satisfy their own increased sex drive. Mental sex is not on the agenda. The problem of women is often that they are too inactive and want to be served. Well, it is very hard or impossible for a man to satisfy a woman who does not participate properly. Tip: have good conversations, do something nice together, do sports together, realize projects together, listen to women, not always the other way around. What thoughts, ideas, and desires does the partner have? Think about physical sexual acts that imitate a conversation, that express what you want from each other, what you expect. Extend the foreplay accordingly. Talk about sexual desires and respond to your partner's needs. Include and consider typical female and male character traits and naturally evolving needs. Be a team in everything you do. Generally speaking, anyone who only feels satisfaction when they inflict pain or humiliate their sexual partner is mentally confused and should urgently undergo therapy. Let us advise you out of experience: the following relationships last the longest. Choose a partner with the same and similar goals, mindset and interests. The temper should differ though. Unfortunately, we must always expect society to degenerate, even in the 1000-year Reich or later. Although Jim and I will be very present and will do everything to prevent this from happening, the associated risk of complete loss of life is too high. That's why we have testosterone, a curse and a blessing at the same time. The source of a great deal of suffering, but was actually intended to be quite different. The man has very short reaction times, is physically very agile and fast, and has penetrating power. Testosterone was originally intended exclusively for the defense of life. Unsuccessfully, men do not understand this and misuse it. Dominant behavior is constantly in the foreground in essential areas, for example, also in conversation. However, this is not good. Foolishly, men have not understood the importance of their position above their vain arrogance. Men who do not undergo sanctification are a real imposition on those around them. At this point, I would like to address 3 emotions that are strongly connected to love and should not be underestimated in terms of their intensity, character, and severity. They arise from loss or fear of loss and are sometimes more or less associated with aggression. I'm talking about jealousy, envy, and longing. In German, Eifersucht, Neid, Sehnsucht. The root word Sucht in Eifersucht comes from the German words for illness or infirmity. Eifer, eagerness, comes from one becomes upset, agitated. Coupled with loss, fear, and perhaps also a lack of understanding for one's partner's behavior, this can easily lead to aggression. This is followed by pathological bitterness or assault. Longing literally means to be sick with desire. Envy is also related to these feelings. One does not have something that one would like to have. This is where the idea of unfulfillability comes into play. These feelings can lead to very aggressive behavior. Also compare to the story of Cain and Abel, the first homicide out of envy in the history of mankind. Please always check your own behavior in a given situation. If you are to blame, the aggression should be directed at yourself and not at your partner or other people. Work together to eliminate the causes. Love for your own children. When the children are very small, it is sometimes unbearable for a mother to let them out of her sight. They are the most important treasure that must be protected. Baby schema, big head, small body. Motherly feelings are the strongest feelings of attachment that the world has to offer. Otherwise, you would no longer exist. The thought of losing a child is always unbearable, regardless of the age of the children. The situation is incredibly stressful. Women are very tense in this phase of life. The balancing act between professional goals and family is sometimes inhuman. This often leads to burnout or other overload situations. Seek for 1 or 2 small recreation breaks throughout the day. This stressful condition diminishes somewhat when the children are about 12 years old. Belonging to like-minded people, a sense of unity, friendship. Family is the most important bond, but unfortunately it is often very problematic as people have the same genetics but not the same mindset. That is why the Bible speaks of a spiritual community. However, the bond should be as strong as if you were related by blood. Unfortunately, this is not properly understood. The sense of community is very important. You want to belong to the big picture, to be part of an organization. A sorrow shared is a sorrow halved. Joy is doubled if you experience it together. The only relationships that will remain in our kingdom are marriage between man and woman, therefore sacred, and friendship or sibling love. We no longer have degrees of physical kinship, but we have one mind. The number 1 principle regulates who is married to whom and their position in society. We have endowed you with a capacity for others that enables you to perceive the happiness or pain of another person. Unfortunately, you have forgotten how to do this and only fight with each other. This will have severe consequences. By the way, because of your misconduct and very bad behavior, you even managed through time to destroy the original love I had for you completely. Agape is a very beautiful form of love. Empathy is at the forefront here. You take care of the other person, listen, help and support, empathize. People who work in care need a large portion of this. Respect is another important point, especially when caring for the elderly. Regarding religious important news, please feel free to watch my videos on YouTube. What we always want to tell you: correct statutory declarations, right presentation of and links between religion, politics, worldview and science videos 1 to 6. Because of their length, sometimes split it in several parts. Since also children have access to YouTube, I encrypted these videos 1 to 5 because of partly upsetting contents. In addition, I recorded a brief summary of the significance of the content of our video series for you and the consequences for your life. You will also find this video on YouTube, long-term consequences of misconduct and sinful behavior. Also feel free to watch my video on YouTube, New Group Alpha Technologies, on LinkedIn. It addresses the civilian population. Thank you.